It was a bitterly cold evening, well past 11 p.m., and Leo Vance was driving home to his 6-year-old son, Ben, eager to get back before midnight. Then he noticed movement near a dumpster in the deserted Riverbend commercial plaza. "Please don't take us back," one whispered when Leo approached. "We'll be good," the other added, her voice trembling. What he'd thought were trash bags weren't trash at all. They were two little girls, huddled under torn blankets, around 8 years old, maybe younger. Small, tarnished lockets hung from their necks. Leo had just wanted to get home to Ben. He thought he'd call authorities, make sure the girls were safe, and move on with his life. He had no idea that what was inside those lockets and what the girls carried in their hearts would change everything. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories reach. Christmas Eve sat heavy on the road, the kind of quiet that made headlights feel louder than they should. Leo Vance drove with both hands steady on the wheel, heater humming, eyes flicking between the empty storefronts of Riverbend Commercial Plaza and the clock on the dashboard. A little after 11 p.m., Arcadia was shut down tight, even the chain pharmacy dark, its windows reflecting his truck as he rolled past. He was thinking about Ben waiting up for him, pretending not to be tired, probably wearing the reindeer pajamas he refused to change out of all December. Leo had promised he'd be home before midnight. He always promised things like that. The truck's tires whispered over the asphalt as he cut across the lot instead of taking the long way around. It shaved a few minutes. He'd done it 100 times. He was already running through what he'd say when Ben asked why Santa hadn't come yet, rehearsing the familiar jokes, when something near the dumpster at the far end of the plaza caught the corner of his eye. A shape, then another, movement that didn't fit. Leo eased off the gas without meaning to. His first thought was a raccoon, or a couple of teenagers hiding from the cold. He told himself to keep going. This was how people got pulled into nonsense, how a simple night turned complicated. He was tired. It was Christmas Eve. He had a kid waiting at home. He passed the dumpster, then glanced in the rearview mirror. The shapes didn't scatter. He slowed to a stop, brake lights painting the snow-dusted asphalt red. He sat there for a beat, jaw tight, staring ahead like the answer might appear on the windshield. Then he shifted into reverse. The dumpster came back into view, metal sides streaked with rust. Something moved again, low to the ground. Leo rolled down the window a crack. The cold cut through instantly.
"Hey," he called, keeping his voice even. "You okay?" No answer, just a faint sound, like fabric dragging over concrete. Leo parked, killed the engine, and grabbed his jacket. As soon as he stepped out, the wind slapped him hard enough to sting. He walked slowly, hands visible, boots crunching on ice. When he rounded the corner of the dumpster, he stopped short. Two girls were huddled together against the brick wall, wrapped in what looked like torn blankets and a man's coat that swallowed them whole. They couldn't have been more than 8. Their faces were red and raw, noses running, eyes too big in the glow of the security light. One of them pressed her face into the other's shoulder like she was trying to disappear. "Oh," Leo said quietly. He crouched without thinking, keeping his distance. Hey, it's okay." The girl who wasn't hiding lifted her head. She stared at him with a look that wasn't surprise so much as calculation, like she was measuring how bad this could get. "We're not supposed to talk," she said. Her teeth chattered, but her voice didn't shake. Leo swallowed. "That's all right. I'm not the police. I saw you. It's freezing out here." The other girl peeked up then, eyes darting to the open lot behind him. "Don't take us back," she blurted. "Please." "Back where?" Leo asked. They both shook their heads at the same time. The first girl tightened her arm around her sister. "We'll be quiet," she said quickly. "We won't make trouble. We just need a little while." A little while. Leo glanced at the dark windows, the empty lot. "Have you been here long?" The girls exchanged a look. The second one shrugged, then said, "Since before it got dark." That hit him like a punch. He checked his watch. Almost midnight. "That's a long time," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Do you have a phone? Anyone I can call?" Another shake of the head. "He said not to come home," the first girl said. "He said if we did, it'd be worse." "Who's he?" Leo asked, already knowing he didn't like the answer. Neither girl spoke. The wind cut between them, sharp and relentless. The second girl curled in tighter, fingers digging at the fabric at her sister's sleeve. Leo noticed then how their hands kept drifting up to their chests, like they were checking something was still there beneath the layers. "Okay," Leo said after a moment. "Okay, you're not in trouble. I'm not taking you anywhere you don't want to go, but you can't stay out here. You're going to get sick." The first girl studied his face, eyes narrowing slightly. "Are you lying?" Leo met her gaze. "No." She held it for a long second, then nodded once. "We can sit in your truck," she said. It wasn't a question.
Relief and fear tangled in Leo's chest. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, you can do that." He stood and shrugged out of his jacket, holding it out. "Here, put this on." They hesitated. Then the second girl reached for it, movements stiff, like she was expecting to get pulled back at any second. Leo turned away as they adjusted it between them, giving them space. When he looked back, the first girl was watching him again. "What are your names?" he asked as he walked them to the truck. "I'm Sophia," she said. She nudged her sister gently. "This is Stella." "Hi, Sophia." "Hi, Stella. I'm Leo." Stella nodded but didn't speak. Her eyes flicked to the passenger seat, then to the door handle, like she was memorizing the steps. Leo opened the door and stepped back. They climbed in quickly, shoes leaving wet prints on the floor mat. As soon as the door closed, Stella pressed her forehead to the glass and let out a shaky breath she'd been holding for hours. Leo started the engine and cranked the heat. Warm air filled the cab, fogging the windows almost immediately. Sophia flinched at the sudden noise, then relaxed a fraction when nothing else happened. They sat there in silence for a moment, the truck idling, the radio dark. Leo could hear his own heartbeat. He thought about his phone in his pocket, about the call he was supposed to make in situations like this. He thought about Ben, about the way he'd look at him when he got home, trusting and uncomplicated. "We don't steal," Sophia said suddenly. "Okay." "And we don't break things," she added. "And we don't need much food." "That's good to know," Leo said. She nodded, satisfied she'd gotten the rules out. "We'll sleep on the floor if you want," Stella whispered, finally speaking. "We're small." Something inside Leo cracked. He gripped the steering wheel harder. "You don't have to sleep on the floor," he said, "and you don't have to earn being warm." Sophia looked at him again, really looked this time. "Where are you taking us?" Leo hesitated. This was the moment. He could still do the official thing, the clean thing. He could drive to the station, make the call, let someone else decide. He pictured the girls back out in the cold while paperwork shuffled, while someone tried to reach a number that wouldn't answer. "My house," he said. The words settled between them, heavy and undeniable. "Just for tonight. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." Stella's shoulders sagged, like the tension had finally drained out of her. Sophia didn't smile, but she nodded once, the same decisive motion as before. "Okay," she said, "but don't tell him where we are." "I won't," Leo said. He didn't ask who him was again. He didn't need to. As he pulled out of the lot, the plaza shrinking in the rearview mirror, Leo felt the night tilt on its axis. This wasn't a detour anymore. It was a line crossed, a choice made. He thought of the clock ticking toward midnight, of Christmas arriving whether anyone was ready or not. He drove on, the heater blowing, 2 small lives warming in the cab beside him, knowing with a clarity that scared him he wouldn't be able to put this back the way it was even if he wanted to. Leo pulled into his driveway a little after midnight, the porch light cutting a soft circle through the dark. The house looked the same as it always did, modest, quiet, a wreath hanging slightly crooked on the front door, but it felt different now, like it was holding its breath. He shut off the engine and sat for a second, listening to the tick of cooling metal, the steady breathing from the passenger seat. "We're here," he said gently. Sophia leaned forward, peering through the windshield. "Is this your house?" "Yeah." Stella didn't move. Her fingers were wrapped tight around the zipper of Leo's jacket, knuckles pale. "You can stay close to me. Nothing's going to happen." That got her to nod. They climbed out together, staying shoulder to shoulder as they walked up the path. Before Leo could reach for his keys, the front door opened. Mrs. Greer stood there in a thick cardigan and slippers, gray hair pulled back like she'd just rolled out of bed, which, knowing her, she probably had. She took one look at the girls and didn't ask a single question. "Oh my," she said, already stepping aside. "Get them inside. It's freezing." Leo exhaled, a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "Mrs. Greer, I—" "Hush," she said, waving him in. "You can explain later. Soup's still warm." The smell hit them as soon as they stepped inside. Chicken broth, bread, something sweet baking that had been forgotten in the oven hours ago. Stella froze just past the threshold, eyes darting like she expected someone to shout. Sophia nudged her forward. "Shoes off?" Mrs. Greer said gently, crouching despite the way her knees protested. "You're safe here, darlings." Safe. The words seemed to land carefully, like it might shatter something if said too loud. Ben appeared at the end of the hallway, hair sticking up, reindeer pajamas visible under his robe. "Dad?" he said, rubbing his eyes. Then he noticed the girls. His face lit up. "Who are they?" Leo hesitated. "These are Sophia and Stella. They're staying with us tonight." Ben smiled at them like this was the best surprise Christmas Eve could offer. "Hi, I'm Ben. Do you want hot chocolate? We have marshmallows." Sophia blinked. Stella stared at the floor. Mrs. Greer clapped her hands once, brisk and cheerful. "Kitchen, everyone, let's get warm." They sat around the table a few minutes later, bowls of soup steaming in front of the girls. Sophia held her spoon but didn't use it. Stella traced the rim of the bowl with her finger. Ben slurped loudly and talked through it, filling the silence with stories about his school play and how Santa definitely knew their address because they'd mailed the letter twice. Leo watched the girls carefully. They flinched when Ben laughed too loud. When Leo stood to grab napkins, Stella's shoulders tensed like she expected him to leave and not come back. "Eat when you're ready," Mrs. Greer said softly, sliding a basket of bread closer. "No rush." Sophia nodded. She waited until Stella took the first bite before lifting her own spoon. They ate slowly, methodically, like they were afraid the food might disappear if they weren't careful. Leo noticed then the small movements, the habits that didn't belong to kids their age. How Sophia positioned herself slightly in front of Stella always. How both girls kept touching the chains around their necks, fingers slipping beneath their shirts to press whatever hung there. After dinner, Mrs. Greer ushered Ben back toward his room. "Let your dad talk for a minute," she said. Ben protested half-heartedly, waving to the girls before disappearing down the hall. Mrs. Greer turned to Leo. "They can sleep in the guest room," she said. "I'll bring extra blankets." "Thank you," Leo said. His voice cracked on the last word. She patted his arm. "You did the right thing." When she left, the house went quiet again, the kind of quiet that made every sound feel amplified. Leo crouched in front of the girls. "There's a bathroom down the hall if you want to wash up, warm water." Sophia shook her head immediately. "We're fine." "It's okay if you don't want to," Leo said quickly. "Just thought I'd offer." Stella whispered something to Sophia. Sophia listened, then looked back at Leo. "Can we... later?" "Of course," he said. They followed Mrs. Greer to the guest room, eyes wide as she turned down the bed and layered on blankets. Stella touched the mattress like she didn't trust it to be real. "I'll be right across the hall," when Mrs. Greer left them alone. "If you need anything, you knock, okay?" Sophia nodded. Stella climbed onto the bed without taking her shoes on. Leo didn't comment. When he stepped out and closed the door, Leo leaned against the wall, head dropping back. He stood there longer than he meant to, listening for sounds, for crying, for anything that would tell him what to do next. He made a call from the kitchen, voice low, careful. He didn't give details he wasn't ready to give. He said he'd found 2 kids, said they were safe, said he needed time to make sure he didn't send them back into something worse. The other end hesitated, then agreed to follow up in the morning. Leo hung up and sat at the table, staring at nothing. Mrs. Greer brought him a mug of coffee he hadn't asked for and set it down in front of him. "I'll stay if you want," she said. "No," Leo said. "You've done enough." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Wake me if you need anything." When the house finally settled, Leo checked on Ben, tucked him back in, listened to him mumble about new friends before sleep claimed him again. Then Leo went back to the hallway and lay down on the couch, blanket pulled up to his chest. He didn't sleep, not really. Sometime before dawn, he heard soft footsteps. He opened his eyes to see Sophia standing there, clutching Stella's hand. Stella was half asleep, leaning into her sister. "The light in the room turned off," Sophia whispered. Leo sat up immediately. "It's on a timer. I can leave a lamp on in here if you want." Sophia nodded. Stella crawled onto the couch without asking, curling into a small ball. Leo shifted to give her space, heart pounding, afraid to move too much. "It's okay," Sophia said, surprising him. "She just needs to know someone's here." Leo swallowed hard. "I'm here," he said, and he stayed awake until morning, the the soft weight of responsibility settling deeper with every passing minute. The days after Christmas blurred together in a way Leo wasn't used to. Time didn't move in clean blocks anymore. It came in moments. Cups of cereal left untouched, shoes lined too neatly by the door, the sound of Stella counting under her breath when she thought no one was listening. Mrs. Greer stopped by every morning with some excuse that wasn't really an excuse. Groceries she bought too many of, extra blankets, a stack of coloring books she said her niece had outgrown. She never pushed, never pried. She just stayed long enough for the house to feel steady, then left quietly. The girls spoke in pieces. It happened while Ben was at school, and Leo was making grilled cheese at the counter, the pan sizzling a little too loud. Stella flinched at the sound, then pressed her palms flat against her ears. "Sorry," Leo said quickly, turning the heat down. "I didn't mean to startle you." Sophia watched him carefully, then said, "We had rules." Leo kept his back to them, focused on the sandwiches. "Yeah?" "We couldn't be loud," she said. "Ever." Stella nodded, eyes fixed on the table. "And we had to stand by the door if we were late." "How late?" asked Leo. Stella shrugged. "Any late." The next piece came that night, while Ben was on the floor building a lopsided tower of blocks. Stella reached for one, hesitated, then pulled her hand back like she'd touched something hot. "He didn't like it when things fell," Sophia said. Leo looked up. "Who?" "Our stepdad," Sophia said. "Marcus." A name sat heavy in the room. Leo didn't repeat it. He let it stay there. Over the next few days, more words surfaced, always indirect, always careful. Locked out for hours to learn, being told to sleep in their coats if they forgot to fold them. The way Marcus's voice changed after their mom got sick, how it went flat and sharp at the same time. "She slept a lot," Stella said once, curled on the couch, fingers worrying the chain around her neck. "He said it was our fault." Leo filed reports between school drop-offs and grocery runs, his jaw tight as he explained what he knew and what he didn't. He was careful with the girls' words, careful not to make them relive things by asking too much. The caseworker who came to the house spoke softly, moved slowly. She looked at the girls, at the way they tracked every adult movement, and nodded to herself. 2 days later, Leo got the call. He was in the driveway, snow crunching under his boots when his phone buzzed. "They found him," the caseworker said, "in Terraford. He tried to cross state lines." Leo closed his eyes. "And the girls? They're safe, and for now, so are you," she said. "We're approving temporary placement. You'll be their foster guardian until we sort the rest." Relief hit first, sharp and dizzying. Then unease crept in behind it, quiet and insistent. Temporary, for now. Leo thanked her and hung up, leaning against the truck until the cold seeped through his coat and grounded him. That night, when he told the girls Marcus wouldn't be coming near them, Stella cried hard and fast, like she'd been holding it in for years. Sophia didn't cry. She just sat very still, jaw clenched, eyes dry and distant. "He can't find us?" Sophia asked. "No," Leo said. "He can't." She studied his face like she was memorizing it. "Promise?" "I promise." It was after that, once the worst fear had eased, that Leo started noticing the other things. The way Sophia furrowed her brow when she was thinking, the exact same crease he saw in the mirror every morning. The way Stella tilted her head when she listened, curious and cautious, just like Ben did. How both girls had the same stubborn refusal to ask for help, even when they clearly needed it. One afternoon, Leo caught his reflection in the darkened TV screen and saw Sophia beside him, mirroring his posture without realizing it. The thought crossed his mind uninvited, unwelcome. He pushed it away just as quickly. People look alike all the time. It didn't mean anything. That night, after the girls were asleep and Ben's door was shut, Leo sat alone at the kitchen table, files spread out in front of him. Names, dates, places. He told himself he was just being thorough, just doing what he needed to do to keep them safe. Still, when he finally went to bed, the image of the girls' faces, so familiar it almost hurt, followed him into the dark, unanswered and waiting. The house had learned a new rhythm by then. Doors opened more quietly, voices stayed low without anyone being asked. Leo woke easily now, the way you do when you're listening even in sleep. It was well past midnight when the sound reached him. Not loud, not panicked, just crying. Soft, uneven, like someone trying very hard not to be heard. Leo sat up on the couch, heart already thudding. He didn't rush. He didn't want to startle them. He followed the sound down the hall, stopping outside the guest room. The door was cracked open, light spilling out onto the carpet. Sophia was sitting on the bed, knees drawn up. Stella knelt on the floor in front of her, both of them bent over something in Sophia's hands. Their shoulders shook as they whispered to each other, voices breaking.
Leo tapped lightly on the doorframe. "Hey," he said. "You okay?" Sophia looked up fast, like she'd been caught doing something wrong.
"We're sorry," she said immediately. "We didn't mean to wake you."
"It's all right," Leo said, stepping inside. "What's going on?" Stella wiped her face with the back of her sleeve.
"We didn't mean to open them," she said.
Leo followed her gaze. The lockets. They lay open in Sophia's palm, chains pooled against the blanket. The small hinges caught the light. Leo crouched slowly, careful not to crowd them, and looked down. The photograph was Clara, but what stopped his heart was the locket itself, the specific crescent moon design he'd given her. She'd kept it. These were her daughters. His mind made the connection before his heart could catch up. It took a second for his brain to register what his eyes were seeing, then another. Recognition came first, sharp and disorienting, like spotting someone you weren't supposed to ever see again across a crowded room. "No," he said quietly, not to the girls, to himself. The photograph was younger than the version he carried in his memory, but it was unmistakably her. The curve of her smile, the way her eyes tilted slightly upward at the corners. Even in a tiny, worn picture, Leo could see it. Clara. His chest tightened so fast it hurt. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice rough. Sophia hesitated. "It's our mom," she said. "We keep them so we don't forget her face." Stella nodded, clutching her own open locket. Same photograph, same woman. Leo's thoughts scrambled, reaching for explanations that didn't involve what this meant. Coincidence, someone who looked like her, a trick of memory. But then he saw her face, the exact curve of her smile, the way her eyes held light even in the faded photo. After 9 years, it was still unmistakably her. He straightened slowly, dizziness washing over him. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said, forcing the words out. "You can keep them, always." Sophia searched his face. "You know her," she said. Leo didn't answer. He couldn't. He stood up and left the room before his knees gave out, moving on instinct, breath shallow, heart hammering like it was trying to escape his chest. He locked himself in the bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub, staring at the floor. Memories crashed into him without order. Clara laughing in his old apartment kitchen. Clara furious during an argument he never understood. Clara disappearing without goodbye. 9 years of unanswered questions folded in on themselves. "She wouldn't," he whispered. "She wouldn't." He stayed there a long time, long enough for the house to settle again, long enough for the idea he was fighting to root itself anyway. The next morning, Leo made phone calls from his truck with the engine running, voice low and controlled. He didn't tell the girls what he was doing. He didn't tell anyone. He ordered tests under his own name, paid extra for speed, and drove away before he could talk himself out of it. Waiting was worse than the night. Every glance at the girls felt loaded now. Sophia's concentration face, Stella's quiet observation, the way both of them squinted in the sun the same way he did. The official results came later. Leo didn't open the email at the house. He sat in the parking lot of a closed hardware store, phone shaking slightly in his hand. He read it once, then again. The document confirmed what he already knew. He was their father. The world went silent. Leo dropped the phone onto the passenger seat and leaned forward until his forehead rested on the steering wheel. His breath hitched once, twice, then broke completely. He didn't sob. It was quieter than that. Tears came anyway, hot and unstoppable, grief and relief tangling until he couldn't tell them apart. "They're mine," he whispered. The words felt unreal and inevitable all at once. "They're mine. And Clara?" The realization settled slowly, painfully. She hadn't left him. She hadn't chosen someone else. She hadn't disappeared because she didn't care. She had been taken out of his life. Leo stayed there until his hands stopped shaking. When he finally drove home, the house looked the same as it had that morning. Lights on, shoes by the door, 2 little coats hanging where they didn't belong but somehow did. The girls were at the table coloring when he walked in. Sophia looked up. Stella smiled a little, tentative but real. Leo smiled back,
carefully, carrying the weight of the truth alone. He didn't say anything, not yet, but as he watched them bend over their drawings, heads nearly touching, one hand each unconsciously resting over their lockets, Leo knew with a certainty that left him breathless. Nothing in his life would ever be simple again, and he wouldn't trade it for anything. The call came the next afternoon when Leo was standing at the kitchen sink, staring out at the yard without really seeing it. The girls were at the table with Ben, arguing quietly over markers. Normal noise, fragile noise. "Leo," the investigator said, "I found her." Leo closed his eyes. "Where?" "She was admitted weeks ago. Severe infection, complications. She only regained full awareness recently." "Alive." The word landed hard in his chest.
"She's been asking about her daughters," the investigator continued, relentlessly. Staff thought it was confusion at first. It wasn't. Leo's grip tightened on the edge of the sink. "Does she know about them?" "No, not yet. And Leo, she has no idea you're connected." After he hung up, Leo stood there for a long time, breath slow, heart racing. 9 years collapsed into a single decision. He couldn't send someone else. He couldn't wait. He went to the garage and made the call from there, voice low, like the walls might remember things he wasn't ready to say out loud. The phone rang 4 times. "Willow Creek Recovery Center," a woman answered. "How can I help you?" "I'm trying to reach a patient," Leo said. "Clara Reed?" There was a pause, then the sound of keys, muffled voices. "One moment." Leo pressed his thumb into his palm, grounding himself. The line clicked. Breathing came through first, fast, uneven. "Hello?" a woman said. Her voice was hoarse, thin, like it had been scraped raw. "Hello?" Leo swallowed. "Clara?" Silence. Then, "Who is this?" "It's me," he said. "It's Leo." The sound she made wasn't a word. It was closer to a gasp, sharp and broken. "No," she whispered. "No, that's not possible." I know, but it's me." Her breathing turned frantic. "Where are my girls?" she demanded all at once. "Please, if you know anything, you have to tell me. They're gone. He took them. They're gone and no one will tell me where." "They're safe, Clara. Listen to me. Sophia and Stella are safe. They're with me." The silence that followed was so complete Leo thought the call had dropped. Then a sob tore through the line, raw and uncontrolled. "You have them?" she cried. "You have my babies?" "Yes," Leo said. His voice shook now. "They're here. They're okay." "Oh my God," Clara said, words tumbling over each other. "Oh my God, I woke up and they were gone and I thought I was dying and no one would tell me." "Clara," Leo said gently, "I'm bringing them to you." She laughed then, a sound edged with hysteria. "I must be dreaming," she said. This is what my brain does when I'm scared." "You're not dreaming," Leo said. "I promise." She went quiet again. "Leo," she said finally, "are you real?" "Yes." Her breath hitched. Then please come now." They drove to Willow Creek as the sun dipped low, the sky dimming into early evening. The girls were quiet in the back seat, hands locked together. Sophia watched the road signs carefully. "Is she really there?" Stella asked. "Yes," Leo said. "She's been looking for you." Sophia swallowed. "She didn't leave us," she said. It wasn't a question. "No," Leo said. "She didn't." The recovery center smelled like antiseptic and coffee. A nurse led them down a hallway lined with muted artwork and stopped outside a room near the end. "She's been asking all day," the nurse said softly. "Take your time." Leo opened the door. Clara was sitting upright in bed, hands clenched in the sheets like she was bracing for impact. She looked thinner, paler than the woman in the photograph, but her eyes locked on the girls and everything else disappeared. Sophia froze in the doorway. Stella took one step forward, then another, like she was afraid the floor might give out beneath her. "Mom?" Stella whispered. Clara made a sound that might have been a cry or a laugh. "Baby," she said, voice breaking completely. "My babies!" The girls ran. They collided with her, climbing onto the bed, arms wrapping around her neck, faces buried against her shoulders. Clara held them with a desperation that bordered on pain, hands shaking as she pressed kisses into their hair, their temples, anywhere she could reach. "I'm here," she kept saying. "I'm here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Sophia cried openly now, fingers digging into Clara's hospital gown. Stella sobbed into her chest, words lost in the fabric. Leo stood in the doorway, frozen, watching a family stitch itself back together in real time. His vision blurred. He didn't wipe it away. Then Clara looked up. Their eyes met across the room. The sound dropped out again. "Leo," she said. barely audible. He took a step forward, then stopped. "Hi," he said, stupidly. Her face crumpled, emotion crashing through whatever strength she'd been holding on to. "You're real," she said. "You didn't disappear." "Neither did you," he wanted to say. Instead, he nodded. "I'm here." Everything unsaid pressed in on them. Anger, grief, love, confusion, 9 years of absence filling the small hospital room. Clara tightened her arms around the girls like she was afraid someone would take them again. "I tried," she said, voice low but fierce. "I tried to find you." "I know," Leo said. They stood there, surrounded by beeping monitors and quiet footsteps in the hall, the past finally catching up to the present. And for the first time since Christmas Eve, Leo felt something settle in his chest. Not peace, not yet, but the certainty that the truth, however painful, had finally found them. They waited until the girls fell asleep. It took longer than anyone expected. Sophia insisted on keeping one hand wrapped around Clara's wrist like she was afraid she'd vanish again. Stella dozed with her forehead pressed against her mother's shoulder, breath evening out in small, shaky pulls. A nurse dimmed the lights and slipped out without a word. When Clara finally eased her arm free and tucked the blankets around them, she looked exhausted in a way that went beyond illness. Leo stood near the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the parking lot lights like they might tell him where to start. "Stay," Clara said, quietly. He turned. "I'm not going anywhere." She studied him for a long moment, eyes searching his face, then nodded. "Good." They sat, Clara propped against the pillows, Leo in the chair pulled close to the bed. The room hummed softly with machines, the sound grounding and unreal all at once. "I didn't disappear," Clara said. Her voice was steady, but only because she was holding it there. "I didn't leave you." "I know," Leo said. She let out a breath that sounded like relief mixed with frustration. "You didn't then," she said. "You didn't know." He waited. "I was pregnant when everything fell apart," she said, "with twins." Leo's chest tightened, even though he already knew. Hearing it out loud made it heavier, real. "I was terrified," she went on, "but I wanted you to know. I tried to tell you in person, but your mother showed up first." The word mother hit like a bruise. "She came to my apartment," she said. "She knew. I don't know how, but she knew. She told me you'd never forgive me for trapping you, that your job, your reputation, everything would be ruined if people found out." Leo's hands curled into fists. She had no right. "She had a lot of power," Clara said quietly, "and she used it. She told me she'd make sure my family lost everything if I stayed. She said she'd make it look like I left you, like I chose someone else." Clara's gaze dropped to her lap. "She gave me money, said it was for the babies, said it was the only way to keep everyone safe." Leo shook his head slowly. Anger rose, sharp and dizzying. "I never saw a cent of it." "I know that now," Clara said. "But then, I was alone, and scared, and sick." "Sick?" Leo asked. She nodded. "Not at first, that came later. But I started getting letters returned, phone calls that never went through. Every time I tried to reach you, nothing came back. Silence." Leo's throat closed. "She intercepted them," he said. It wasn't a question. Clara met his eyes. "I believed you chose not to answer." The words landed hard between them. "I thought you left me," she said, "that you found someone else and didn't have the decency to say goodbye." They stared at each other, the weight of that misunderstanding pressing down like a physical thing. "I ended up with Marcus because he offered stability," Clara said. "He seemed kind at first. He wasn't. But by the time I realized that, I was already trapped." Leo closed his eyes. "He hurt them?" "Yes," Clara said, no hesitation. "And after I got sick, it got worse." She told him about the infection, how it came on fast and left her weak, how Marcus took control of everything while she was hospitalized, how he isolated the girls, convinced them she'd abandoned them too. Leo's jaw tightened until it hurt. Rage burned hot and directionless, searching for somewhere to land. "She did this," he said, finally. "My mother did all of this." Clara nodded once. "She destroyed us." The room felt too small to hold what he was feeling. Anger at his mother, guilt for not fighting harder, grief for years lost that couldn't be reclaimed.
I should have looked for you, Leo said. I should have questioned it. And I should have fought her, Clara said, but I was afraid. They sat in silence after that, not awkward, just heavy. I never stopped loving you, Clara said at last, even when I thought you let me go. Leo looked at her, eyes wet, voice barely holding together. I never stopped either. Outside, a car passed, headlights briefly washing the room in white before fading away. Inside, the truth finally lay between them, ugly, painful, undeniable. And for the first time since it was buried, it could finally breathe. Clara moved into a small apartment 10 minutes away, close enough that the girls could see Leo's house from the main road if they leaned out the car window. It helped. It also made everything harder. The twins stayed polite with Leo, careful and distant, like they were afraid closeness came with conditions. They followed his rules exactly, thanked him too much, asked permission for things Ben didn't think twice about. Leo noticed every second of it and hated himself for not knowing how to fix it. Ben noticed too. One night at dinner, he pushed his plate away and said, "You like them better now." Clara froze. Leo opened his mouth, then closed it again, useless. Clara reached across the table and took Ben's hand. "She doesn't take love away," she said gently. "I only add to it." Ben looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded, eyes shiny. "Okay." Trust came in inches. Clara learned the twins' silences, the way Sophia needed reassurance without words, the way Stella needed to talk things through even when she was scared. She never forced affection. She waited. Leo struggled quietly. 8 years missing, 8 birthdays he'd never see. He watched the girls brush their teeth at night and felt the weight of every moment he hadn't been there. The word came out by accident. They were at Crestwood Park on a mild afternoon, Ben chasing pigeons while the twins climbed the low stone wall near the path. Stella slipped on loose gravel, skinned her knee, and cried out without thinking. "Dad!" The sound hit Leo like a physical blow. He was there instantly, hands shaking as he checked her knee. Stella stared at him, eyes wide, like she hadn't meant to say it. I mean, she started. "It's okay," Leo said, voice thick. "It's okay." Sophia watched from the wall, face unreadable. Then she climbed down and stood beside her sister, close enough that the shoulders touched. "We're happy," Sophia said quietly, "that you're our dad." Leo didn't answer. He couldn't. He just pulled them both into his arms, right there in the park, while Ben watched and smiled like everything finally made sense. The weeks after Crestwood Park were quieter, but the past lingered like a shadow. Marcus's trial dragged on in a neighboring county, his threats now impotent behind bars, but the memory of him and the fear he'd sown resurfaced in the drill's eyes at unexpected moments. Leo's mother called once. He didn't pick up. When she left a message, he deleted it and exhaled as if letting go of years of weight. That afternoon, he told Clara everything. "I'm done with her," he said. "I can't let her touch our family anymore." Clara nodded. "We'll stand together," she said. One evening, the twins sat on the couch, knees pulled up. Sophia looked at Leo, then Stella, and said firmly, "You're our dad. We choose you." Stella echoed it without hesitation. Leo swallowed the lump in his throat and nodded, words failing him. A few weeks later, under the soft glow of early autumn, Leo took Clara to the small garden behind her apartment. He knelt on one knee, hands steady despite the emotion in his chest. "I want us to be a family," he said, simply. "All of us. No secrets, no hiding. Will you marry me?" Clara's eyes glistened, a smile tugging at her lips. "Yes," she said softly, a whisper that carried the weight of years lost and found. For the first time, the future didn't feel uncertain. It felt chosen. The leaves were turning gold and red when they married. A quiet autumn afternoon at Crestwood Park. The ceremony was simple. Leo in a crisp jacket, Clara in a soft cream dress that brushed the grass. Ben carried the rings proudly, wobbling a little, while Sophia and Stella scattered petals with careful precision. There were no grand gestures, no music swelling from speakers, just the wind through the trees, the soft rustle of leaves, and the faces of the people who mattered most. When they spoke their vows, it wasn't about perfection. Clara's voice trembled as she said, "We honor the past, but we choose this, together." Leo's reply was just as quiet but firm. Every lost moment brought us here. Every wrong turn, every heartbreak led us to each other. I will not let go again. The twins squeezed their mother's hand. Ben leaned against his father's leg, smiling without a care for the formalities. And for the first time in a long time, the weight of old fear didn't fill the space between them. Weeks later, Christmas returned, colder now, but warmer in ways the past year had taught them. The house was alive. Laughter bounced off the walls. The fire crackled. Presents waited under the tree, but the real treasures were already present. Hands clasped together, little arms draped over shoulders, hearts finally home. Sophia carefully hung her locket on a low branch. Stella mirrored her. Ben put his tiny hand on Clara's arm. Leo watched them all, chest tight with a gratitude that had no words. The lights twinkled softly against the ornaments. Outside, snow dusted the world in quiet white. Inside, the house hummed with life, messy and imperfect, exactly what a family was supposed to be. And somewhere, deep in the memory of one cold Christmas Eve, Leo remembered the stop he almost didn't make, the choice that changed everything, the car that slowed, the hearts that opened, the family that finally found itself. This time, no one was lost. And that's how a single choice on a cold night brought a lost family back together. If you loved this story and want to see more heart-stirring tales like this, don't forget to subscribe to Soul Strength Stories. Hit the bell so you never miss a journey of love, hope, and second chances.